Hi everyone and welcome along. Today I have got a really gorgeous little tutorial for you that's all about making your gift wrap just that little bit more gorgeous. I love to try and use brown paper and string, but sometimes that can look a little bit austere. So we've got a very sweet little hot air balloon gift tag for you to try. So grab your paints and let's get started. So I've just got a little 4.5 by 6 inch piece of paper, and I'm going to take something round, and this is a rather sort of wobbly round item, so you can see it's not a perfect circle, but it doesn't really matter. Just going to draw around it. You could use a compass, and then what I'm going to do is just find the sort of rough middle point, there we go, that I can then create a little basket and then from there I can do some lines that I just take the sort of outer curve there of the balloon, and then we'll do 2 more lines so they're coming down in. And we have our balloon structure. So if you've drawn it very heavily, give it a little rub out with pencil, otherwise we are good to go. The lovely thing about a hot air balloon, a tag design, is it could really have any kind of pattern it wants. A lot of designs would have a sort of a curving stripe. I'm going to put that on, but I think I'm going to begin by just drawing in a rough central circle. And again, you can see it's nice and wobbly because I like the idea of having a little design in the middle, and I thought I really am enjoying little strawberry tableaus at the moment. So I'm going to just draw a little strawberry here and there, kind of a little bit stylized. And we'll put a little flower, so I'll just do a little circle for the flower. And some little wiggly shapes for the leaves. And then I will just do an extra border around the edge. And then we really are good to go. So the great thing about watercolour is we can turn these strong, bold colours into really pale, delicate tones. And what I've got here is opera rose and a little bit of yellow ochre. And with my size 8 brush, all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the entire shape. So I'm going over the top of my, my design. And that's why it's really important to have knocked back the pencil lines, just so you've got the bare minimum of what you need. And I'm working nice and swiftly to get it down on the page before it all dries. And we're just going to let that dry fully. And in the meantime, I'm going to paint the basket just in yellow ochre on its own, just a nice sort of dilute, fairly flat colour. We're just getting in our basic layers and we'll let them dry, and we can paint on top of them nice and easily because we've kept the colours really nice and dilute. I've let that dry 100%, and now I'm going to take some sort of milk consistency red, which I have organic vermilion, got a little bit of fluff on the brush. And I'm going to paint some stripes. So the way I do it, I find the easiest way is to start sort of roughly in the middle and imagine the stripes sort of expanding. There we go. And contracting back in. And this gives you a sense of the roundness of the balloon. And then I can do another one. I just like to build it up kind of stroke by stroke. And what's nice is quite soon you get to do a full one and then bring it back down in. But don't forget to thin it out as you come back in. And then once you've got the stripes in, we can just paint in our little strawberries. And it's amazing now, that pale pink we painted on is almost invisible. And now we can focus on our green. So I am going to just change my water over because red and green are complementary colours, so we really want to try and keep them separate. And I think a combination of green gold and sap green will be really nice. So we've got our little leaves, which I can just paint in like that. It's funny, it's not often I draw a pencil outline or something and it actually feels a bit strange. So that's why I find your painting will be much more expressive if you just think of it more as drawing with the brush. So here I'm just going to put in my own brush strokes to create those little serrated edges on the leaf. And then I'll take a little bit of sap green on its own. And then I'm going to use a much smaller brush. I use a size 0 to just paint in the stems. And the one thing I will be careful of is just my little circles. That's quite a watery green I've got here, but that's kind of all right because we're painting in quite a simplified way. Now, whilst we're waiting for that to dry, we can do some fun extra little details down the balloon. And I thought what might be quite nice is doing a sort of slightly wiggly slender line and just pop some little leaves on it. A lot of these little simple designs are made all the better by just keeping on adding little simple repetitive marks of detail. Nothing too complex, but just repetition is really effective. And then once those green leaves and vines have dried, I've just taken some concentrated sap green, and this is and a 4/10 brush, and this is a really good way if your leaves are a little bit blobby in shape, you can just use a little bit of the green to just define that shape a little bit on the vine. And then we can also use it to add some little leaf lines and also some all-important sepals on the strawberries. And because we're able to layer it with this quite strong colour, it's going to show up beautifully on top of what we've painted already, because it's that bit stronger, and we started off nice and light and dilute with our colours to start off with. That's probably the most important tip when painting with watercolour. Okay, and now I'm going to do just a little bit more detail with one more colour, and I've got alizarin crimson, this lovely deep claret colour. And to start off with, I'm just going to do some very simple little spots, just little dots. Sort of match them up. And it's just a nice way to just keep building that detail. So I'm using the alizarin crimson to add dots as well to the strawberries, and the way I do it is I do a diagonal row, and then I just start doing more diagonal rows, but just going in, alternating in the gaps. And that seems to make a pretty convincing strawberry. And then it's nice because it feels a bit like the stripes are like strawberry seeds. And then I have just painted that alizarin crimson circle, and I will do the second one as well. So I'm using my size 0 brush, and I'm holding the brush really vertically, and I'm just going to try and control my way around. Now, for those of you who don't love the side angle lens, this is why we have it, because in moments like this my hand is blocking the painting, and it's really important to be able to see from the side as well. So that's why we have it. Okay, so just tidy that up a little bit. That looks really cool. And I think I will just do some little curve shapes in the circle, and then we can do our flowers and the last little details on the basket and the strings. So I've popped some yellow dots in the middle of the flowers, and I've just got some Payne's grey, just a very little bit on my brush, and I'm very simply going to paint in some petals just like this. So you can see I'm doing this in a fairly stylized manner, and then I just take a little bit of green and just do a few little bits in the middle. Okay, so I'm now going to take my rigger brush. Oh, it had a bit of colour on it. Uh-oh. So you can see I left the paint on it and didn't clean it off, and so now I've just got to just get those bristles back cooperating with me. There we go. The beauty of watercolour is if you do forget to wash your brush off, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to mix some burnt sienna into my Payne's grey to make a nice dark brown. And I'm going to use my rigger brush to paint these long lines, because that is really what this brush is for. I'm just going to tilt it slightly so I can get the best angle, and here we go. And then all we need to do is put a little bit of detail onto that basket and we'll be done. So in terms of detail on the basket, I think maybe a bit of burnt sienna with some of my yellow ochre. And I quite like the idea of we'll give it a little bit along the top, and then just sort of give that a bit of texture downwards. Okay, and now just some of these little lumpy shapes, these little curves, give it that woven basket feel. And then once I've done that, I can use the colour to just with a bit of wetness, soften it in and blend it a little at the sides. It gives me a little bit more of a rounded shape. So I'm just cutting it out once everything's dry, and I'm leaving a fairly sizable white gap around the edge, which on one hand is it's a design choice, but also it just helps strengthen the thinner parts. And then I have a crocodile, which is a hole punch, and I'm just going to find the middle at the top, punch a hole, and there is my gorgeous gift tag. So next time that you are wrapping something that is in brown paper and you just feel like it could do with a little boost, then one of these gift tags is a really fantastic way to do it. And this is also a reminder that you can still pre-order copies of my brand new book. You will be able to paint with watercolour by the end of this book. And even though we're going through just dealing with the tariffs at the moment, the great news is you will not be affected because books are VAT free, and also we have got USA distributors, so you can pre-order without any worry. And there we have a lovely cheerful gift tag. And of course you can find loads more card making tutorials on the channel, but let me know how you get on with this one. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe on the video, and I will see you again next time. Bye!